Hi there, my name is Dan Page, and along with my partner, I run a firm called Funding Strategy Partners, where we provide expansion capital to small business owners nationwide, and we've been doing this for about 5 years now and have been extremely successful. Just in the last 12 months, we've grown over 300%. Now, the reason I'm here is not to necessarily talk about the stuff that I do, but more so to share some of the strategies and tactics and things that I've learned along the way that makes a huge difference in my business and can also make a big difference in yours as well. So some quick backstory. Throughout the last 30 years, I've been a corporate business development consultant. What does that mean? I'm the guy that's brought in by companies large and small, typically fairly good size, to help drive new business, to find new clients, to set up strategic alliances. And so I'm their hired gun that they use to be able to, make things happen, to shake the bushes. And I've sold over $500 million worth of products and services over the last 20, 30 years. You heard it, that's over $500 million worth of stuff that I've sold. And along the way, I've learned some very specific things that work for me regardless of what industry I'm working in, which is why we were able to launch Funding Strategy Partners 5 years ago. And we've done so well with it. In fact, we've grown over 300% in the last 12 months alone. And what's interesting is I'd love to be able to share some of the strategies and tactics that we use and show you how I'm able to land new clients, get the attention of companies I want to work with, and have them clamoring to do business with me, just using the same tried and true approaches and strategies and things that I do that can make a big difference for you as well. What's really cool is that throughout my experience in doing this, I've learned how to work significantly less and also to earn vastly more on an hourly basis than I was before I started, just by using some of the things that I've developed, by watching some experts in other industries and converting their strategies to work for me. And it's just been a blast. I really, really enjoy what I do. I get to sit out here, in my pool outside my house talking to you, and I genuinely want to share what I'm doing so that you can do the same thing. So that, like you can have companies and individuals that want to do business with you, that are begging to do business with you, and have a lot of fun along the way, and everyone wins. So there's a number of things I'm going to share, but today I'm going to share really a 5-step process that I've developed over time that just works regardless of industry that I'm working in. So I'll share this with you, and then I'll share a couple of examples so you can see what I'm talking about in action and how it's worked. And then next time we get together, I'll show you exactly how it's worked in the finance industry with Funding Strategy Partners. So my 5-step system. First thing I do, it might seem pretty basic, but it's really important, is I determine exactly what I want to get. I'm very, very specific about what I need, what I want, what I'm searching for. And I'll write that down, what it is that I'm trying to get. The next step, number 2, is I start looking out there and I identify who might be able to help me accomplish my goals. Who has the power? Who has the ability? Who has the connections? Who has a desire? Who are those people and where do they reside? Where can I find them? I put a lot of effort into this step. It's identifying who those folks are. By the very fact that you're watching this video, you are one of those people. Okay? Now step number 3 is, and this is where it gets real interesting, I do my best to figure out what's most important to those people. To those people that I want to work with, those people that have the power, the ability, and the connections to help me, I really give a lot of thought about what's most important to them and what do they want. And step number 4, you might have guessed it, that I sit down and I come up with everything I can possibly think of that I can do for those people. What can I do for them? What can I do for you to be able to make a big difference in your life? And I think a lot about that, and I write it down and I take notes and I put together an entire package of what I can do for those people. And then, at the end of all the story, by going out of my way to help those other people, I end up getting what I want as a byproduct of helping them. It sounds a little bit woo, maybe, but I'm telling you it works. So let me give you a few examples, okay? I'll give you 2 examples. I've written a couple things down here if you see me looking down so I don't forget anything. The first example, I'm going to step outside the finance industry completely just to give you an example of how this can work in any industry. Okay, so a number of years ago, this one goes back to 1994, so it may sound like forever to some of you younger people, but it seems like yesterday for me. And I was a consultant for MasterCard and Visa. So I had my own company called National Affinity Cards, and we did hundreds of affinity and co-brand bank card programs. So these are the bank cards that promote a corporation, a company, or they raise money for a specific cause. And I did over 700 of those programs. So I'm not going to go into any of those, and just one I'm going to talk about. When I was meeting with Visa International one day, he said, Dan, you know, we'd love to have this. We love what you've done. You've created these great programs, but we'd love to have a really flagship program, one that's going to really make the news this fall. What can you come up with? A big flagship program, a great big brand that's going to be extremely exciting. And by now, all the airline programs had their credit card programs out there and everything, and the bank card, affinity and co-brand programs were starting to become a little passé. So they were looking for something to rev it up and get really exciting. So to make a long story a little bit shorter, I reached out to the Rolling Stones, the rock and roll band Rolling Stones. They had just begun their world tour in 1994 called the Voodoo Lounge Tour. I don't know if anybody you went to that concert or not, but it was a great show. And they had just begun their show, and they had about 40 dates scheduled around the world. Around North America, that is, I'm sorry, they had more around the world. So I reached out to their merchandising outfit, and I ended up with a contract to promote a Rolling Stones Visa card and a Rolling Stones MasterCard with a big tongue logo on it and the whole Rolling Stones logo. And that was our pitch, and they were into it because they were going to make a bunch of money off it. So the very first thing that I did, and I'm leading up to my little 5 points here. The very first thing that I did is I met with the merchandising outfit at one of the shows, and we sat down there and discussed, okay, how am I going to promote this MasterCard and Visa? Because from my perspective, I wanted to promote it right at their shows, because that's where you're going to get the highest level of affinity. And they said, Dan, well, I'm sorry to tell you this, but you can't. And I said, what do you mean I can't? We just signed a contract. I said, yeah, but if you want to promote inside the venue, you can't, because we are completely sold out of all our vendor shirts. People selling t-shirts and coffee mugs and photos and all that kind of stuff. They've taken up every single spot inside the venue, and there's no room for you. So I don't know what you're going to do, but sorry. So thought about it a little bit, and as I was looking around, I saw some of the vendors had these little stickers on their chests that said vendor pass, Rolling Stones Voodoo Lounge concert, and had the date on it and everything. And I said, those vendor passes, is it possible to get any of those vendor passes from you? And they said, yeah, but it's not going to do any good because you can't have people inside. We don't have any slots inside the stadium. We just told you that. And I said, yeah, I know, but what if I were to operate outside the stadium, in fact, right at the front doors? Would that be okay? And they said, yeah, there's no place for you to set up. I said, well, I don't need to set up. I don't need a booth. I don't need anything. Is it okay if I get 20 of those vendor passes for each show from you? And they said, yes. I said, can I get them for free? And they said, well, yeah, they don't cost us anything. They'll just allow the vendors to go in and outside the doors and identify who the vendors are. So I said, great. So I got my vendor passes, and then I set about my process. And here's the process I was talking about. So I wanted to be able to find people who could help me to be able to promote my Rolling Stones MasterCard and Visa card. So what I really wanted is I wanted 20 people to work at every single show to hand out flyers. I had these little flyers printed up, MasterCard, Rolling Stone MasterCard, Rolling Stone Visa card, and we would just pass them out. That was my goal, to pass them out to people as they came in the front door with an 800 number to call to apply for the card. So, geez, I got to hire, there's 30 shows left. I have to hire 600 people. That is just going to cost me an enormous amount of money unless I can get creative. So what I did is I would go ahead of the show. I would go to the city where the next show was going to be, and they're already starting to set up for the next show a little bit. And I thought, remember that list I just went down, the 5-point process? So I thought, what do I want? I want 20 people to work for me handing out flyers at the Rolling Stones show, and I want them to do it for free. And so that's what I want. And I thought, who has the power? Step number 2, who has the power to be able to help me with that? I thought about it for a moment and said, well, college kids. Universities, colleges, they have the power to help me. So I thought, well, step number 3, what's important to them? What's the most important thing to them? And if I found just the right audience, like college kids, the most important thing to them, my ideal prospect, was to see the Rolling Stones for free. To get into the show for free, and tickets were selling for $150, and they were sold out every single show. So even just being able to get in the door was huge, and college kids don't have that kind of money. And step number 4, was to give them what they want. Okay? So I come up with an idea. In the very first city I went to the local university, and I just walked in and went up to the bulletin board and saw which college group was meeting that day. It could be the photography club, the marching band, whatever it might be. So which group was meeting that day, and I just walked in unannounced to the meeting. Said, I have a little announcement, if that's okay. And I walked in, I'd raise my hand and say, who would like to see the Rolling Stones for free? And boom, all these hands would go up. and said, here's the deal. I will get you into the Rolling Stones for free. The concert's in 3 days, whatever it might be, whatever day I was there, 2 days. And all you have to do is work for me for 2 hours before the show. I said, no way. So yep, before the show, so you get to see the whole show. And I showed them the little flyer I had. And I said, all you gotta do is stand outside the doors. I'll give you the flyers. And as people walk by, you just pass out the little flyers. That's it. And when the show starts, we'll walk in. When the show starts, I'll take that vendor pass off of you because you're no longer a vendor, and you get to walk in the doors for free. I'd bring you inside, and I'd strip the vendor pass off. And the first 20 said, absolutely, I'll do it. And it was a smashing success. So to make a long story just slightly shorter, I ended up doing 30 shows, touring with the band, the whole backstage photo ID pass. I toured with the band, and I hired over 600 college students. All of them worked for me for free. All of them just begging to get in, thanking me up and down that they were able to get in to see the Rolling Stones for free. We generated 10,000 card holders. 10,000 card holders in 60 days. It cost me $30,000 in travel fees to do that. That's just airlines and hotels and rent-a-cars. So 10,000 card holders, $30,000. It cost me $3 per card holder. During a time when the average cost to acquire a new card holder was between $100 and $150 per card holder, I spent $3 and had a fantastic program, huge success. Everybody loved it, everybody won, and I got my 10,000 card holders for $3 a piece by using the system, figuring out what I wanted, but more so figuring out what my exact audience was and what they wanted. Huge success. So that has nothing to do with the small business finance industry. Now I'll come a little bit closer to the small business finance industry and give you another example. This is back about 7 or 8 years ago. And I had a client that was a large financial institution. Again, worked in the banking industry a lot of my career. And they had a loan product they were trying to make available to small business owners, different than what I do at Funding Strategy Partners. And so their strategy was to try to form alliances with PEOs. I don't know if you know what a PEO is. It's Professional Employment Organization. They handle payroll, they handle all the paperwork for all the reporting for small businesses and everything. It's a lot cheaper a lot of times to hire a PEO than it is to try to do it yourself. And so this financial institution had been trying for 6 or 7 months, I think it was about 7 months, trying to reach out to PEOs, to these professional employment organizations, so they could pitch their product to their customers. And you know how many they had signed? 0. They had come up completely empty-handed after 7 months. And so they heard about me, they heard about this wacky business development guy named Dan in Colorado, and they gave me a call and said, what can you do? Can you help us? So I looked at it and I said, maybe, let me do a little research. So started looking, got my little 5-point system out there, and I started looking and said, what do I want out of this? What do I really want? That I want a lucrative consulting contract with this financial institution. I want them to pay me a lot of money on a monthly basis to do business in their doors. Okay? Now, who had the power to give this to me? Step number 2, who had the power? Well, my client had already identified that for me. These PEOs, the professional employment organizations, had the power. So then step number 3, what's important to these professional employment organizations? Well, one of the big things is their clients. They want to find more clients like the ones I already have. They want more small business owners. And if they're handling their payroll and all their financial transactions, they want to make sure these guys stay in business. They want to make sure their cash flow is there and they have plenty of money to operate their business. And then next, they want to retain these clients because, as you know, it's a lot easier to retain an existing client than it is to try to find a new one somewhere. So that's what was most important. Those three things were most important to my prospect. So I thought, okay, step number 4. How can I give them what they want? Okay, first I got to find them. I have to find out where they are rather than just going to the internet and one at a time searching, buying industry trade journals. I could do that, but that's what everybody else did. So I wanted to be a little more creative. And I started looking around a little bit and saw that coincidentally, purely coincidentally, there was a large conference coming up for professional employment organizations. There was a big PEO conference that was right around the corner. So I reached out to this conference, and it was a conference / trade show, and like any trade show, you can rent booth space. So I called up, talked to their booth space rental person, and said, I'll rent a booth. What I really want, though, is a list of your attendees. So I paid for a booth, and I paid for a list of attendees. Didn't need the booth. Threw that away. All I wanted was that list. I paid a lot of money just for that list. And I went down through the list, and I was looking for decision makers that could help me. So I identified all the C-level decision makers: CEO, CFO, CMO, Chief Marketing Officer, Chief Finance Officer, Chief Executive Officer. I identified all these folks, and there were about 150 of them that I siphoned out of that list of about maybe 500 attendees. And then I thought about it. I took the next step, and I sat down and I wrote a very specific letter explaining to them what I had for them, and I had the ability to find new clients for them, to differentiate them in their marketplace, to help their customers by giving their customers money, by making sure that their customers made payroll and they had plenty of money so they could hold on to their customers, and I could show them how they could retain their clients. And I talked all about them, all these things that I could do for them, differentiating them in the marketplace, adding more revenue to the bottom line. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to meet with them while they were there at this conference. And I had already by this time scheduled a hospitality suite at the conference, at the hotel, and I started booking appointments. So I sent out this letter to everyone, and I very carefully tracked who responded and who didn't. So I gave it about 7 days. If they hadn't responded yet, I took all the non-responders and I put them into a separate file, and I took that same letter, I did a follow-up letter, and I sent it to them via FedEx. So I FedExed, I think, like 87 letters out to these folks who had not yet responded, and was setting up meetings at this hospitality suite. And then the conference was coming up fast. I was on the plane, and I still had a few spots left that weren't filled. So while I was on the plane, I sat down and I literally hand wrote some letters to these individuals who had not responded. And when I got to the hotel, I went up and I found a staff member working through the concierge at the hotel, and I said, I have this stack of letters. There's about another 20 letters that I had. I said, I'd like to give them to these individual names, and I know that you can't tell me what room they're in, but here's $100. And if you're willing, I'll give you these letters, and if you could just go to their rooms and just slip it under their door one at a time, I'll give you $100 for it. And at the end of the day, what I did is I had rented this hospitality suite, and we booked this hospitality suite from 9 in the morning to 6 in the evening for 30-minute increments, and I had the entire thing booked completely. In fact, the folks that showed up at the bank, the conference was in Orlando, and the folks that showed up from the bank to work with me, they brought their families, they brought their mother and their kids, because they figured they were going to go to Disneyland because I wasn't going to get them any appointments. And they were sorely disappointed. I literally had them booked from 9 to 6 for 3 solid days. And at the end of it, we had 30 PEOs signed on the dotted line on contract within 3 days. They'd been trying for 6 months. They had 0, and I had 30 of them within 3 days. Within the next 45 days, I had another 32, 34. So we ended up with 64 PEOs within my first about 2 months, a little over 2 months, working with these guys, and just completely blew them away. And remember step number 5, to get what I want? I wanted that fat consulting contract. I ended up with a $25,000 a month consulting contract with this bank, and I'd already done all my work up front. So I ended up with a $25,000 a month consulting contract for an extended period of time just by using this system that I'm talking about. So I apologize for boring you with these stories, and hopefully it wasn't boring and it was you're pulling some tidbits out of it, but I want to show you how this system works. Now I've already taken up a bunch of your time, so the next time we get together I'm going to show you how I've taken this exact same system and I've used it from taking funding strategy partners from a simple idea of 2 guys to a bustling, hustling enterprise now that is just doing a massive amount of business using this exact same system. So I'll show you how I did that, exactly what I did, and how you can do the same thing. I hope this has been helpful for you, and please, when you watch this video, this should be posted on YouTube here, so please leave me some comments, tell me your thoughts, ask me your questions, because I generally want to help you the same way I'm sending leads and doing the best I can to send business to you. I want to be able to help you and share some of my experience and my insights to help you drive new business. So with that, I will let you go, and again, the next video I'm going to be talking about exactly how I did this same thing with my business called Funding Strategy Partners. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.